Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I have a card to share with you today using the July 2021 Kit of the Month. I've previously done a technique with distress ink cubes and direct to paper, but when I did that before, I used just black ink, and this time I thought it'd be fun to kind of do it with some gold heat embossing. The heat embossing will kind of hold things in place and give a little bit of a different look and effect to it, and I was really excited with how it actually came out. So you can see there I have a panel of watercolor paper. This is just Strathmore cold press watercolor paper. Whatever your favorite will work just fine. I like the texture of this, though. It's fairly easy to stamp on. I went ahead and used my embossing buddy on there, and then I'm stamping it with clear embossing ink. I'm using my Misty so that I can stamp multiple times. I actually ended up stamping a total of 3, just because the texture of the watercolor paper does make it a little harder to be positive you're getting a perfect impression. And since the ink is clear, I just figure I'd rather do it too many times than not enough and risk that. All right, since I've got that stamped well, I'm going to go ahead and put some gold embossing powder on here, covering the image nice and solid. And as you can see, it's stamped nice and clear, and I got a great impression. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my heat gun and set that. Now, once I stamp this, usually I double check with the grid on my Misty, but I noticed I'd stamped just ever so slightly crooked. So I'm going to use my paper trimmer to straighten that out, just by kind of using the lines on that clear cover there to get the first line, and then by going around from that base cut to trim everything else so it's straight. So even if you stamp crooked, you could also use a rectangle die to trim that down. All right, now I've got my distress ink colors out and a spray bottle just of water. And all I'm going to do is just use these cubes. I kind of like to use the corner. Don't press too hard. You don't want to deform your ink pads there, but I'm using it just to carefully apply a little bit of color. And you'll notice I'm not filling the whole area, because once I mist this with water, it's going to spread and the ink's going to bleed, and it's going to fill in and color this entire image. So I started off there with cracked pistachio on the jar. Then I used abandoned coral on the florals. I'm going to use twisted citron to kind of hit the leaves, especially on those. I'm really not worrying about staying in the lines. I'm just kind of going over the areas where the leaves are, or where I want to add a little bit of greenery in the background. I came back a little in the jar because I realized I'd forgotten the top of that. And then I used mustard seed just to put a little bit of a detail shadow layer around the outside. You'll notice certainly not perfect, just getting a little bit of color on there, and that's going to bleed out. Now, this next part is kind of where the magic happens. You mist some water on. Now, the more water you do, the more it's going to bleed out and blend, and the ink's going to move around. The less you do, you get a little different effect. On this finished here on the bottom, you can see that I had more moisture, so there's more bleeding. And along the top, I didn't have as much, so it's a little bit of a different effect, but it's such a magical watercolor look without too much effort. And like I said, I like the added fun of the heat embossing on there. All right, this is a solid foam panel. I am adhering to the back. I just use fun foam and wide score tape. And then in advance off camera, I went ahead and heat embossed a sentiment from this kit, that Miss You sentiment. I heat embossed it in gold on black cardstock. And then I just used my scissors to fussy cut it out. And I'm going to mount that with some foam adhesive just on the middle portions. I wanted to kind of make it a little more of a interestingly shaped sentiment. And once I started putting it on here, I really liked it. It was fun straight, but I thought it was kind of just a playful, fun effect to add it a little bit of an angle. And I purposely made sure that right edge kind of tipped off the edge of that top panel. And then the final finishing touch, just to kind of help enhance that gold heat embossing even more, I grabbed some metallic gold pearls. These are from Pink Fresh Studio. And I just adhered a few of those around in some fun little clusters in different spots around the image. And these are going to add that fun little bit of dimension and a little bit of sparkle to finish this all off. All right, and there we go. This card is finished. A fun, simple, and very quick and easy technique. Thanks so much for coming by. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful day.